What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Plain Jane Cars. And this is a Plain Jane Cars podcast. Actually, this is our first real podcast. How you feeling, Tristan?
Super excited. It's really nice in here.
Right?
This is my first time here. It's been before, but not me.
Because this is the Plain Jane Cars podcast studio.
Yeah.
As you guys may or may not know, we actually did a few podcasts, so I could kind of get my podcast legs, I would say, on YouTube. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please go to YouTube, type in Plain Jane Cars. Of course, plain spelled Plane, not plain, because I got to be different.
Right.
But yeah, go check it out because the content there is different. It's varied. It's not just podcast stuff or us talking or having guests.
Car shows, meets, build series.
Yeah, a little bit of everything, right? But one thing we wanted to do is we wanted to actually add more kind of content creation to our bag, as it were, and creating podcast content is something I felt kind of interested in. I listen to a podcast. Do you listen to any podcasts, Tristan?
I do.
You subscribe to a few?
I do.
So I only have one that I'm loyal to.
Oh, really?
One. And I love it so much. I find myself actually looking forward to it. Like, I know when it's going to come out. And the days when they miss or skip, I'm like thrown off. Like, what? Where's the podcast?
Yeah, it's nice to listen to something like on the way, driving all the way downtown from Katy as far. So, it's nice to listen to something other than music.
And you're looking forward to it, right? You find yourself like a true subscriber. That's kind of how I wind up coming up with the idea of doing podcast content and then adding not just YouTube stuff, because we started with maybe 5 or 6 on the YouTube channel. And of course, people aren't going to be able to listen to that or watch it while they're driving.
Right.
And I realized, podcast, there's a billion, probably literally.
There's a lot. It's super popular now.
Podcasts. Yes. Everybody has a podcast.
Popular. All across a variety of things. I know there's like language podcasts, crime podcasts, for people interested in all that type of stuff.
True crime stuff?
Yeah, true crime, yeah. There's a lot of them.
So I found podcasts about 7 years ago. One of my colleagues, Cheryl, I hope you listen to this at some point. I'm probably going to text the link to you so I can get before we get into the story about Cheryl and how I found podcasts, if you are listening to this on Apple, please leave us a review. That would be great. But we're on Apple and Spotify now. Same thing on Spotify. You can rank and review us there too, but definitely leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And again, I already mentioned it, but I'll say it again. If you are listening to this and you want to see more of us, go to the YouTube channel and subscribe there for more varied content. All right. Just want to make sure I say that. I'll probably say it again at the end. Yeah. But I wanted to quickly talk about, what is Plain Jane? But before we get into that and how I came up with Plain Jane and the whole content thing, I've done that before for the YouTube channel, but I've never done it, obviously, for Apple and Spotify. So I want to make sure that the people in Apple and Spotify understand why I came up with this whole Plain Jane Cars thing. So back to Cheryl. She told me about this Wondery. And Wondery is like almost like a production studio, the same of like a Disney or anything. And they support these content creators around podcasts. And some of them are like movies, like there's seasons and series on like true crime stuff. Dude, I got locked into their web of podcasts. Yeah. Only thing is, it's not as consistent as the one I listen to on like a weekly basis, right? They drop 2 or 3 podcasts every week. So that one, I get my fix on a regular basis. But I mean, I found myself binging some of the Wondery stuff. So I'm like, why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I offer that to people, whether they want to drop in every now and then, or there's a special topic that we do, a cover that they want to see, or a series of things we talk about, or if they, lock in and say, hey, Plain Jane Cars is going to be my fix every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Let's do it. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Plain Jane Cars. We got to keep it brief because the people on YouTube, you probably already know this, and most of the people that watch us, I think, will know, but it's just proper form to inform everybody, since it's our first podcast on Apple and Spotify, our first audio podcast, to talk about Plain Jane Cars. And I've described this a few times. So I wanted, Tristan, what is Plain Jane Cars?
I would say originally it started out as like a name for the car. Because when you got it, it looked very plain. Even though it was an M4.
Legit plain.
It wasn't like Spec or anything. You even have it in your profile. It's M4 base. Like base M4.
A base M4.
Not necessarily Spec or anything like that.
No.
He got it. It was used, for like, but it was only like a year old. So I think it just started because it looked plain. It didn't have anything going on, even though you had the vision in your mind. So you knew it was going to be far from plain. Right. It started out as so. And it kind of just grew. People started calling him that. A lot of people, I don't think know his name. My dad's name.
My name is Plain Jane.
Or his government, you know?
My government. That's right. That's right.
So I think it just started off from that, and it just grew. It was on license plate, and people just know him as that now, especially with the Instagram, thousands of followers on Instagram, people on YouTube, just meeting people from shops and getting to know people that way. Just know him as Plain Jane.
Yeah. That's like the best way to describe it without sounding all complicated and all fussy. But that's really how it started, right? One thing that made me feel plain is like pulling up to a BMW meet. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about the car culture in Houston and in general, people get together. And I mean, very regularly because, I mean, driving is a big part of, you know, the car culture. Yeah. Going on cruises and going to parking lots, getting food, just any excuse to be in and around the car, to enjoy the car. So I tapped into that as soon as I got the M4. And when I pulled up, I knew what I was going to do with the car. I knew 100%, but it was so shocking seeing how basic my car looked.
Especially with other spec M4s. And,
right.
You know, people have other cars,
I was like,
higher trim levels. And,
my car is so plain. Mm-hmm. It's so plain. And it, you know, I still say that it is because I compare it to some of the builds that I really, really love. And they've went leagues beyond where my car is. So I still view it humbly as a plain car, even though I know people are like, that ain't plain. Like,
especially with the wrap.
Yeah, the wrap is definitely beyond plain. But anyway, so that's where it really started. What really started the journey of content creation, I'll be brief on this, is I was just standing in a parking lot that was full of BMW M's. Some people may not know this, but I'm from the east side of Baltimore proudly. Yeah. And my mom said, stop saying on your channel that you were poor growing up. We were not poor growing up. That is an exaggeration. It's hyperbole. But we were of simple means. Yeah. Right? We weren't broke by any stretch. No government assistance or anything. Like my dad worked as a steel worker. Like I think we were actually really in a good position financially. But that aside, at 30 years old, or however old I was when I pulled up with my M4, my plain car, I had never been in a parking lot with like 20-something M cars. Mm-hmm. And all of them like regular working people. And I think that's a part of like Houston too, right? Money flows here a little differently, right? Yep. And I thought it was so cool. I was like, does anybody here do? And at this time, I did not have any subscriptions to any YouTubers, like anybody that was making car content at all. Right. But in my mind, I actually didn't subscribe to any YouTube. You guys, my children were watching YouTube for entertainment. Give me the guy that you guys used to watch. He's super huge. I can't remember his name now. Help me out. Oh, he did the Roblox and all that kind of stuff.
Oh.
PewDiePie.
PewDiePie.
It wasn't PewDiePie?
Oh my goodness! To play Minecraft?
Yeah, Minecraft guys, the funny voice people. Anyway,
yeah, I know you're talking about.
They would walk around the house with their
popular MMOs.
Yeah, they would walk around the house with their devices, right, with their tablets. I'm like, what are you doing? Like watching YouTube, popular MMOs. But anyway, so yeah, I had no visual reference of there were people creating content around cars on YouTube at all. Total innocence. I remember asking Arrowson, who put together the meet. I'm like, does anybody here like record this stuff or do videos or anything like that? And he was like, no. But he said, and there's a couple of people with an earshot, and the one guy turned around and said, well, I have a YouTube channel. Like he had like some exhaust clips that he did of his car like 4 or 5 years before that, nothing else. And I just took out my camera. I took out my phone and I just started recording the cars. Right. And I think the next week I got some guys together and met Beto Diaz. This guy is an amazing FPV drone pilot. And I said, hey, I want to do a video for my Instagram with your FPV stuff. And we did it. And I said, would you be able to do this with like 3 or 4 cars? Mm-hmm. And he said, sure, if the owners are okay with me flying around in cars. I said, yeah, don't worry about it. So I grabbed a couple of guys and we did it. And I said, I'm going to, which I didn't even know what this was at the time. I said, I'm going to vlog it. Yeah. And that's really how it happened. That was my first video. I had no clue what I was doing. Never edited a video. Didn't know what video editing software was. And I fell kind of down the rabbit hole of creating content around cars. I was lazy with coming up with a name. And my Instagram was Plain Jane M4. Mm-hmm. Plain was just too simple.
Yeah.
So I said, nah, we're gonna make it plain Jane, because obviously it's just a play on Jane and spelling it the same look better. The first t-shirt I made, I was like, yeah, it looks better plain, spelled like airplane than it does Plain. So that's the background. I wish it was a more riveting and engaging story about how I started creating content, but it's a hobby.
Yep, pretty much.
It's literally something.
Just grew.
It grew. And now we're doing a podcast.
Yep.
Which is super cool. So what are you looking forward to most about the podcast, Tristan? I didn't prepare her for these questions. It's just an honest question.
I think yes. Because, like, you see people, like, he talks about people, and I meet them oftentimes, but getting to see people and hear their actual opinions, or I can voice it on a podcast that's meant to be, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Yeah. Rather than just meeting them, hey, hi, this is my daughter, hi, shake hands, and you move on type situation. It's not. It'll be nice to meet people and see what they actually think that have these cars that we see all the time. Yeah.
That's what I'm most looking forward to. One of the things I've often found interesting is I may not know, and please, if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to comment below and let me know of other content creators in Houston that are doing something similar. Be happy to collaborate with them. I haven't run across a podcast that's based in Houston. I know there's some TV shows of shops that are here. Yeah. And of course, they wouldn't be able to collaborate for a lot of different legal reasons. But I think there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of wonderful garages here. True enthusiasts, people that are kind of lazy enthusiasts like me. And I would love to give them all a platform to talk about, some of their car journeys, their experiences, and, what they love about cars. That's really what Plain Jane Cars, that's what it's intended to be. The inception of the idea was 20 cars, 25 people standing in a parking lot. And I was like, wow, these are a bunch of $100,000 cars all together, and these people are normal. They were like normal people. I was like, I wonder if people know, because where I'm from, that doesn't where I'm from, when I was there, that didn't happen. No, it may be happening now because the car culture has exploded. But I believe Houston, Miami, Vegas, Phoenix, LA, Southern California, New York, it's a little different. The money flows a little bit differently, so I think the car culture is appropriate. So let's talk about guests really quickly. There are quite a few people that I would consider friends in the car community, and we're going to have them on for various reasons. Some of it is their garages are insane. They have some crazy cars. Some of them, their passion is insane. So I would love to hear their viewpoint on stuff. And some of them are just true historians of car culture. There's a few people that I think everyone will be surprised that I'll have on as guests. But I'm looking forward to guests the most because I don't really enjoy talking, contrary to popular opinion. I have to talk because my friends have encouraged me to. It's another thing that happened in my journey when I recorded that first video. I didn't talk in it. The second one, I didn't talk in it. And the first one I talked in, and then I went away from talking because I didn't want to talk. It was like, I'm not a vlog. I don't want to vlog. I never wanted to do that. I just want to capture the cars. And a few different people within a short period of time said, you should talk more in your videos. I said, nah, I'm not really interested. And they're like, no, really, you should talk more. I enjoy when you actually talk. Now, it might not be for everybody, but there was enough people that gave me feedback to say talk. So I said, well, I'm going to keep talking. Yep. Let's just try and talk. Let's try and talk. We have the most exciting car event of the year for, I think, the entire United States.
The last one at this track, anyway.
The last one. TX2K. What did you think of the first TX2K you went to?
Absolutely insane.
Right?
Absolutely insane. The first time I went, I believe it was in either 2016 or 2017. I think it was 2017.
Probably. Yeah, that sounds right.
15, and I didn't really have, I didn't have any clue what any of these cars were. I knew it was like, oh, like that's a Lamborghini or that's a Nissan. I could read the makers. Right. But just seeing cars go that fast was just like beyond me. Like, I'm like, there's cars that are completing the quarter mile faster than people 0 to 60. Yeah. And I'm just like, what the world? What in the world? It just seemed crazy.
For the uninitiated, TX2K is really, it started out as Supra Nationals, and it was all about, two Jay-Z powered cars going really, really fast down the Baytown track here. And well, it's in Baytown. We call it Houston, but it's in Baytown, Texas.
Pretty far from Houston.
It's pretty far from Houston.
Like 20 miles.
It's close enough
miles.
where Houston can claim it, but no, it's not. Yeah, it's not Houston. But and it's just grown immensely over 15 years, probably. I think. Don't quote me on that. But and now it's just about the fastest roll racing and quarter mile racing vehicles.
It's crazy.
In the world, essentially. I mean, there's some fast stuff, in Europe. There's some fast stuff in Australia. But as far as the States go, everything shows up here. And I was talking to a friend who built a car for 2X2K this year. And actually, before I jump into that, the interesting thing is back when Tristan and Cameron, my kids, when we were with a couple of our friends, the fast cars were doing low 8s, high 7s for drag racing, which is insanely fast. That's insanely fast. That's insanely fast.
I remember him telling me, though, he's like, no, there's cars that can go 6s. And I was like, nah.
Those were like back then in 2017. Those were pro cars, right? I said there are some pro drag racers. They're 6s and the 8th mile guys. They're doing high 3s, low 4s. So I'm like, this is fast, but it's not fast. What has happened in the last 6 years? 2023. These cars, it's almost
normal.
They shortened the track for roll racing this year because the cars are too fast.
Yeah, too fast. Yeah, I saw.
They're too fast.
I saw a video on TikTok of a GTR. His 100 to 200 was 2.69 seconds, and his 100 to 150, I think, was just under a second.
It's insane.
Or like 1 second. I was like, what?
These cars, 60 mile an hour to 130 mile an hour, which is a really good street indication of like how fast your car is. Yeah, 60 to 130 is kind of like the initial measurement of how fast a car is. Street cars used to be back when we first got into the game of road racing. If you were doing in the 6s, you were actually pretty fast. 60 to 130,
really,
like 6 is fast.
Yeah, that's fast.
If you're doing 4 now, people don't even take you seriously.
Yeah.
60 miles an hour to 130 miles an hour.
He did 0 to 60, 60 to 130, 100 to 150. It just gave him whatever he was using.
The draggy. Draggy is the tool that most people use that kind of.
100 to 200 in 2.69 seconds. It was a roll, but it's GTR. I was like,
And that's just
mind-blowing.
It's a measurement of horsepower and torque is really what roll racing is, right? I think drag racing, which probably more listeners and especially people that aren't really deep into the car culture, you're probably more familiar with drag racing, right? Like the light from a stop. Some of us in the car community will call it dig racing. Yeah. It's a lot more involved.
Yeah.
It's just so much more involved.
Much more driver.
Yeah, it's more driver. Yeah, it's more of a driving game than roll racing. And then roll racing still requires some driving. Yeah. But there's a lot.
A lot of those factors at the green light are taken out when you're road racing. Yeah. It's a little bit more consistent, I would probably say. It's
not really all about horsepower and torque in dig racing. It's really about traction. It could be traction, it's tuning, it's suspension.
The
it's
driver. Driver mod.
The track itself, right? Yeah. Like what can the track hold, like the conditions of the track, the temperature. And roll racing is involved with that too. There's a lot of those factors involved too.
As much,
but it's just amped up when you dig
probably
racing.
Why it's a thing anyways, because it takes away a lot of those
you get to really show, because one of the I wouldn't say frustrating, but one of the interesting things about dig racing is cars never really get to show their full potential. Like you're never really, unless it's slow. Like I'm saying these big horsepower cars, you're never going to run all out because the track normally, generally speaking, you have to have perfect conditions for it to hook up at the line and go. You normally have to tune it, pull the car back.
And you got,
Whereas roll racing, there's some of that now because the cars are so stinking powerful that they are pulling power out and they're doing like the guys are spinning at 100 miles an hour.
So it's boost by gear, all that type of stuff. I'm like, oh my, I couldn't imagine. I watched the video. He's like, I'm spinning in third and fourth gear. I'm like, excuse me.
These are all-wheel drive cars that are spinning, hazing the tires.
All 4.
At 100 miles an hour.
I'd be scared too. I would let off too. I don't even blame you.
That's called
it's not worth it.
pedaling.
Yeah.
I would pedal too.
Yeah.
It's just interesting when we think the progress that cars, because really the platforms are the same. All the cars that we saw back then were the same cars, right? It was the Coyote powered twin turbo Mustangs that were running the 8s. The GTRs, and we're talking about dig racing, the GTRs were in the 7s. There were a couple that may have run a low 7.
RS3s.
The RS3s, all the Quattro, the Audis, they were in, I think they were in 10s and 9s. They were somewhere in there in that sport class. And then they had what was it? I was gonna say the V10 platform. So the R8s, the Gallardos, the Huracans, the Vipers, they were all like obviously the fastest cars, even in dig racing.
And all the old JDM cars.
Yes.
You know,
all the 2JZ power stuff.
Yeah.
And they still, I mean, that's still a super popular class. Because the 2JZ class is what started the entire TX2K event. So, and those cars have been insanely fast for a long time. Inline 6-cylinder.
Yep.
3,000 horsepower.
Yep.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
They sound the best too, in my opinion. My humble opinion, I think. Oh, I like inline 6s though, so.
Yeah, I was like, you're biased.
Everything I own is a turbo inline 6, including my Ram.
It's inline.
Inline 6. The Cummins is a 6.7 liter inline 6.
I thought it was inline. I thought it was V.
Turbo diesel. We don't do Vs over here.
Well,
maybe one day I'll do a V. I don't want to say that.
You and mommy's cars are inline.
Yeah, we all inline turbos over here, except for you.
Cameron's kind of.
Yeah, he's like a weird.
There.
My son has a VR6.
But he's there. He's not here. He's not here. He's like here.
He kinda. It has one head.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. It doesn't have two heads.
Yeah.
So I always say like, it's really an inline. Volkswagen's weird, of course. I always say the VR6 is kind of an inline 6.
Then there's me.
Yeah, well, you're inline.
I guess.
You're just missing 2 cylinders.
Ooh.
You got the turbo.
Ooh. Ooh.
No, we're really excited to continue to create content with you guys. We appreciate the people, you know, family, friends, members, all our buddies that are Jehovah's Witnesses. We appreciate you guys for like supporting us. It's super cool for us. We know some of y'all are like, we don't know what Charles and Tristan are doing, but we think it's cute.
Pretty much, yeah.
We're appreciative. Some of my old colleagues too, man. I really appreciate, you know, some of the support. Keith, I know you're going to listen to this. I'm putting pressure on Keith Neal. No, so Keith, no, that's Paul.
You told me he was like, yeah, he has
Paul
an actual
Vasco.
race car.
I'm calling you out on Apple and Spotify, guys. We can actually have hosts on the podcast.
He has a race car
via Zoom.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. Yeah. So I'm going to ask for more than just subscriber support. We're going to have Paul on. Paul knows. He's going to listen to this. He's going to see it on YouTube. Keith, I already reached out to Keith. Keith's my mentor, the one I talk about all the time.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
And he just loves cars. He sends me YouTube videos all the time. He's like, hey, man, check this out. He's just into the car culture on a different level. So we're going to talk about, you know, and he's from London. So he has a different taste in cars, right? Yeah. He's a European outlook. And I want to talk about that, about, you know, Euro Rallycross, and talk about F1 and things that, you know, for me, I didn't grow up with that influence. I never watched Drive to Survive, so I didn't catch the F1 bug. I'm not going to fake it, right? I'm just kind of roll race, dig race guy. I'm kind of into my little corner of interest. So I'm looking forward to some guests that you probably wouldn't expect. But Paul, speaking of Paul, my daughter knows Paul has a race car. He has basically a dragster, but it's diesel powered. And it's extremely fast and powerful. He's rebuilding it. First season out with it was last year. Super successful. Trials and tribulations building any car. Right. Especially something like that that's so unique.
Diesel, yeah. Carlisle did a diesel video. It was the new M4 versus the 430D. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I forgot they make diesel cars over there.
And that 430D was given the M4 smoke.
Well, I don't know what 1,000 Newton meters is, but I know it's at least 850-ish, 900.
Yeah, 800 foot-pounds of torque, somewhere around.
And it had like the same horsepower as the,
I think it was less. 460 horsepower, and the new one had like 800 foot-pound of torque, something like that, yeah.
And it had like 600. I was like, wow, this diesel is crazy.
From a dig and from a roll, it was spinning wheels in third gear.
Yeah, he said, I'm spinning in third, fourth, and almost fifth.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
In a diesel.
Because of the torque.
Yeah. No, diesels aren't.
Like,
diesels can make insane. Well, I put it to you this way. It's a reason why all the big trucks have a diesel in them, right? They make a lot of power, and they think
it'd be possible for a car. Like the 430, I'm like, it's still like like what?
I should have asked Paul this.
1,000 Newton meters of torque.
I don't want to spoiler alert for Paul when he comes on the show, but I believe he was in the low 4s in the 8th mile, which is extremely fast. I can't remember what his mile an hour was, but it'll be interesting to have him on because it's like he's just strapping an amazingly powerful diesel engine to a rail with a seat bolted to it.
That's what it is. At some point, it's just, the shells,
Right.
Just like, there's nothing there but a seat and a fire extinguisher, fire suppression.
Yeah. And he's sitting on the ground. So, no, I look forward to having him on. I'm not going to name any other guests. We'll have, and we're actually coming up with the show schedule. I think what we'll be doing for our podcast listeners on Apple Podcasts and Spotify is we'll probably be posting every Wednesday at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
I don't want to lock myself into that. I think that's where we're going to start, and we'll see what works for everybody. I know people, generally speaking, listen to podcasts. I know I listen. I don't appointment listen to any podcast, so I'm treating it that way, but maybe people do, so maybe we'll adjust. But I think for now, we're going to shoot for every 8 a.m. on Wednesday. You will get a fresh dose of Plain Jane Cars podcast.
Yep.
And I don't know what the YouTube, we'll post the video version of the audio podcast whenever. Yeah. YouTube probably is a little bit different. You do the same thing
on Spotify. I know you can put the video on there.
No.
Well. Yeah.
She's teaching me
so
actually on the podcast.
in the app, so you can listen to it. It's still playing in the background where, you turn off YouTube, you can't listen to it.
No way.
But Spotify, yep.
You'll have to teach me how to do that off air. I did not know that was available to me.
Yeah. I was like,
interesting.
It was like, you want to watch the video? I was like, yeah. Because I wasn't,
Really?
Yeah. Some people offer it.
I didn't know that.
Something you can do on Spotify. I don't know about Apple, but I do know Spotify.
Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I did not even have Spotify on my phone until I started the podcast. I feel guilty because I use the Apple stuff. Yeah,
I don't use Apple. I use Spotify.
Yeah, well, whatever works. We're here for the people. So we're gonna get the people what they want. If you like Spotify, we're there. Yep. If you like Apple Podcasts, we're there. Yep. And we're gonna work on getting on the other platforms too, because I know some people might use Amazon or there's a bunch of different ways to find podcasts. I think Spotify and Apple are the two biggest.
Yeah,
it's kind of why we started there, right?
Definitely.
Cool. Next couple of weeks, we got some exciting stuff coming up. Again, we touched on TX2K a little bit. One of the guests that we'll have coming up is actually participating in TX2K. So we'll get to hear real life how it was behind the gates, actually on the track. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of nerves involved because it's an extraordinarily expensive car. Yeah. And also there is Shift Sector coming up, half-mile event at Hondo, Texas. So
Hondo.
Yeah, middle of nowhere.
I was going to say something. Middle of nowhere. That's
west of San Antonio. Yeah. Majority of Texas is the middle of nowhere. But Hondo is just west of San Antonio.
Okay, it's like 3 hours away, something like that.
Yeah, 3.5, 4 hours probably away from. And it's just the airfield. The interesting thing is, I might try to figure. Yeah, exactly. It's like Car Wow. Yeah, it's super popular though. A lot of people do it. A lot of people know about it. It's like TX2K, but like, you can really go as fast as you want. There's no sand pit at the end, right? You like they shortened the track at TX2K. Yeah.
For planes,
a half mile.
Yeah,
and I think they give you double as long to stop. I want to say.
I would imagine.
So you may have a mile to stop the car. Don't quote me on that. But it's somewhere in there. It may not be double as long, but they have a large braking zone. Yes, it's larger than a regular traditional quarter-mile track, right? Yeah, because you're driving as fast as you can for a half of a mile.
Yeah.
A lot of the cars, of course, 200 plus miles an hour. Most of the cars. Well, not most of the cars.
So
a lot
is this an event for you?
My car is super, super slow, but some of the guys in a BMW,
it's not like you TX2K, but
it ain't nowhere near. So real quick before we go, because we have a little bit of time left. So it's funny. I was talking to the guys that built EMG. Here, European Motor Group. They work on my car and probably a lot of people's BMWs here in Houston. Mike and Josh have really good reputations because they're good people, but they're also really, really good technicians. Like, they're really good at what they do with all European cars. But for some reason, the BMW community have latched onto them. They built an M3, same generation as mine, 2016, 2017. I don't know the year of the car. It's Nigo's car. Nigo's been in the street, Mexico activities for years. And he just built the baddest single turbo, air-to-air, intercooled monster M3. And they were going to be in a sport class in TX2K. So it's like the lowest.
It's the lowest, level. Okay.
And I think like the lowest horsepower was 1,500, I think.
I know people were saying like you do not belong in the TX2K if you're making less than 1,000 horsepower.
That's how it was a couple years ago.
And I was like, that's fair.
I don't think
that makes sense.
I think 1,000.
Because it's a huge event where a lot of people are.
Yeah.
So it just weeds out.
Yeah. I think 1,000 horsepower is now more for like TX2K Mexico activities. Mm-hmm. You don't come out unless you have 1,000. Yeah. I think for the event now, I think like 1,500 is not really TX2K power anymore. I think you need to be closer to 2,000. I mean, in a real way. I'm not everybody's using it, but most of the really competing cars, so UGR, Sissio Performance, T1, all those guys, those cars are all north at like the starting is 1,500 because their lowest packages, generally speaking, is a 1,500 horsepower package. Mm-hmm. That's where guys start now, and then you go from there, which just is crazy. So getting back to my daughter's original intimation, I should take the car out there and blow the engine up because then I'll have to do something more fun. I just don't.
It's not TX2K, you know. If
it's
below
not.
That,
it would
then
be
it'd be
fun.
good for you.
It'd be fun.
Tune, you know,
because I think I agree with you. They have a wider range of like horsepower and builds and all that kind of stuff.
So you couldn't go to TX2K for sure. But if it's below
I wouldn't
that'd be cool.
myself like that.
I'm just saying, if there's something else similar that you could do that, you know, people that are sitting around 750 plus.
I think there are some cars that is probably around 800, 900. Yeah,
that's perfect. Yeah,
I could do it.
Not TX2K, but still pretty fast. You know, for a regular car that you drive on the street.
Maybe one day.
Most of those cars TX2K are not street cars.
Maybe I'll have a fast car one day.
Okay, but you got a fast street car. Those cars at TX2K are not street driven.
Yeah, they are.
No.
We're not going to have this argument.
No way.
Those cars are street driven. A lot of them are. A lot of them can be driven on the street. My car isn't street driven, really, but it can be driven on the street, and they're similar. That's all I'm saying. Those guys, I mean, you can have a 1,800 horsepower car on the street now. That's the amazing thing about it. Or I would say 1,800 horsepower capable, right? They may not have that, you know, that map setting where they're on 1,800. They may be at their 1,500 setting or their 1,200 setting, but you can drive it.
Legal.
Yeah.
Street legal.
100%. Yeah, you can drive them now. A lot of, look, trust me, Sheepy Race, UGR, AMS, all those guys are building cars. They're just spitting out 1,500 horsepower V10 builds that people drive every weekend. Yeah. You can take it to movie park at B-Locks and everything. Yeah. It's different. Even in the last 5 years, that's what I was saying. Like you can have a 15 to 1,800 horsepower true street car that you could drive to work, but literally. I think once you start getting north of that, you probably start running into some it could be tough to drive, but because of the transmission, you start running straight cut gears and all. Yeah, it might be noise and uncomfortable, but 1,500, all day, every day. It's shocking. Wow, right?
Yeah.
So look, some programming notes. One thing I want to touch on again. If you are listening to this on Apple, help your boy out. Give me a 5-star and leave a review. Plain Jane is an amazing guy. Because obviously we know all this algorithm stuff counts, right? So, and once we get multiple episodes, subscribing on podcast or whatever platform you're using, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, will help significantly. Same thing on YouTube. If you are a podcast listener and you want to see some more video content, hop on over to YouTube, look up PLANE, Jane Cars, and we'll pop up. That's right. We got our logo up here in the studio. We'll pop up and just browse the channel. Something you'll hear me say on my YouTube videos. There's a lot of stuff on there, man. I think I need to look at how many videos I have. I don't think it's 100 yet, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah,
a lot of them. So there's something on there for everybody. Is why I say if you're in the cars, there's a little bit of something. And we're going to keep that content coming. So if you're a YouTube person, you think, is he only going to do podcasts now? No. I have been focused on this for the last month and a half because it's kind of a different thing for me. It has my attention. But we're going to mix all the old stuff and some new stuff into what we're doing on YouTube. Last thing I'm going to say is we're going to target Wednesday, 8 a.m. For the audio podcast to be posted to Spotify and Apple. And if you have any ideas, if you have ideas for guests, I'm up for a few remote executive producers. I think we have quite a few. Thank you to all the people that support me. I want to say that again, honestly. Like, I really, sometimes it trips me out, the messages that I get, and like, it really, I feel touched, honestly. Like, it makes me feel a little emotional. I really appreciate it, even though it's only, I'm not going to name everybody. It might only even be like 20 people, but to me, those 20 people are like super, super cool, because I don't do it for that. I do it because I get to hang with my daughter, and it's just fun for me. It's creative for me, keeps my mental space clear. But I truly appreciate those people. So thank you. We appreciate you. And we look forward to you joining us on our podcast journey. I'm getting choked up. Tristan, give me some closing words.
I look forward to seeing everybody and meeting people that I haven't met before. Look forward to this adventure, because I've never done anything like this either. He's been doing videos for a while, but he's always kind of been by himself. Family's kind of been in the background, so it's fun for me doing this. What does that
mean? Family been in the background? Dang,
you'll see my shoe. You'll see the back of me. Like, never see me unless you've met me.
The one thing I will say is I've never been comfortable with like shoving a camera in anybody's face, right? Because I know how difficult it is for me to be on camera. Yeah. It's awkward. Yeah. It can be awkward, I should say. And some people are natural, some people aren't. Exactly. And you have seemed to adjust and adapt pretty easily to the camera.
Yeah, and I've never done this before, so.
Right.
So now.
Sorry. I'm bad family in the background. What? Go ahead. Finish.
That was just something. But yeah, I look forward to being able to do this. Help me speaking wise, meeting new people. Yeah. It's fun.
Well, I appreciate your support. Again, we appreciate you guys' support. And we always say this on YouTube. Now it's a part of Apple and Spotify podcasts. We're going to see you guys in the next episode. Peace.